Well, welcome back to the Faith Together podcast, sponsored by the Center for Faith and Family at Olivet Nazarene University. I'm Lindsey, and I'm joined with my co-host, Leon. Hi, Leon.
Hi, Lindsey.
Great to be together today.
Yes, it always is.
It's an exciting day because we are starting a brand new series here on Faith Together.
Yes, we kind of introduced that a little bit last week, right?
We did.
Probably we need to hear some more.
Yes. So this series is called Shalom at Home. And what we want to accomplish in this series is to have conversation with guests that can help us understand how we can have wholeness, peace, complete connection, things such as that in our homes with our kids. What does it look like? We talk about shalom a lot at Advent, right, Leon?
Right, that's correct.
What does it look like to keep that peace, that shalom, not only in our everyday lives individually, but how do we do that with our families? And so we thought having a series to really focus on connection physically, emotionally, mentally as families would be a really helpful one in this new year.
Yeah, and today's kind of a introduction to the concept of shalom, right?
It is. Yep. So today's episode, we're excited to just talk about what shalom means and how that can look in our family lives at home.
Yeah. So we'll kind of define the word shalom as we go and then talk about kind of some practical ways in which that can be lived out in home. And then in our future podcasts on this topic, we have some guests in that have written books and done a lot of research on the topic of bringing peace into your home. And so we're really excited about those.
Yeah, we'll be welcoming guests from the Reach Hurting Kids Institute. So they have training to share with families trauma-informed care for families that have experienced trauma of any sort and how to bring safety and peace and belonging and connection to your family. So we're looking forward to having Dr. Robert Crosby and Reverend Kayla Smith join us here to come in some future episodes.
Yeah, and they're friends of ours.
They are.
And so as we gave thought to how to help families who have children who have dealt with trauma and other types of experiences in their lives, we were going to kind of create some things on our own, do the research, kind of create some curriculum, and then we kind of looked at each other and thought, what in the world are we doing? Because we have some friends who this is what they do,
right?
And they're research specialists, and they've spent a lot of time in this field, and so we're really privileged that we get to have them on our podcast.
Yeah, so they'll be joining us here in a few weeks. But for today, Leon, we have a special guest with us. We do
have a special guest, and he is a very good friend of mine, Reverend Antonio Marshall. Antonio and I have kind of a long history here at Olivet. He was one of our star basketball players during his 4 years at Olivet, holds some records and all that kind of stuff. And in the process, he was not a follower of Jesus when he first came to Olivet. And as chaplain of the basketball team, I had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with him. And over the course of time, he made the decision to follow Christ. And I got to be a little bit a part of that. And that was kind of exciting for me. And then when part of that time together was helping him navigate his relationship with his girlfriend at the time.
Oh.
and eventually that turned into...
I didn't know this part.
Oh, yeah. That turned into a proposal and a wedding. And I was honored to be able to serve as the pastor of their wedding. So that was kind of cool. And so I just have this wonderful love for Antonio and really glad he's here. Antonio serves now on our campus as the director of athletic discipleship. And I bet you would be hard pressed to find many schools in the country that have someone who is focusing on the discipleship of athletes.
Yeah.
And so maybe he'll share a little bit about that new role for him as we go. But we're really glad to have you with us, Antonio. Welcome.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much. And thank you for the long introduction. One thing that I would say is just very grateful for the life of Leon Blanchette and the kind of spiritual fatherhood that he has given me over the last decade or two.
It's been a joy, and we've had a chance to go to Tanzania together. We talk about Tanzania every once in a while on the podcast. Yes. So we've spent 3 trips?
4.
4 trips.
4 trips.
Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Antonio, I'm also thrilled to have you here. It's really a joy to serve together on campus here at Olivet. And also, we get to serve at Gathering Point at our church together.
Yep.
So I get to see your family each and every week. I actually see your boys more than I see you. But it's a joy to be able to serve together, both here on campus and in the local church.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're so glad to just open up the conversation on the Hebrew word shalom. And so we know that that word in a nutshell means wholeness, completeness. But I'm wondering today, between the three of us, if we can just talk about what it would look like for our homes to reflect that kind of peace, a whole, complete peace, and not just quiet, like, I'm at peace because everything in my home is quiet and peaceful and not a sound is going. That's why I get up super early in my house, because everything is actually quiet.
Amen.
I was about to say, I don't know that any listener who has children ever has that experience.
Right. I mean, I have it for about 20 minutes in the morning, if that.
Yeah.
But, we want to talk about emotional, relational wholeness with our families in our homes. So just wondering kind of what comes to your minds as you think about shalom and bringing that peace, that wholeness to our homes.
Yeah. Before we jump into that, Lindsey, let me just say that I really like the way you've kind of defined this word.
Mm-hmm.
The Hebrew word shalom is often translated in most of our scriptures and in whenever it's kind of used in the common language around the church as the word peace.
Right.
And unfortunately, while that's accurate, it's incomplete. And so I like the way that you have kind of defined this as a wholeness or a completeness that involves the concept of peace, but not peace like nothing's happening and it's a peaceful moment, but a peace that God brings in, can be in the midst of chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about, and maybe you guys can relate, those little Sunday school songs, where they say, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river. You think of peace as like that serene scene outside, with everything going perfectly. And that's not what shalom is.
Right.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of peace, I think of Miss Esther Tuick and the work that she's doing in the Shalom Project, and some of their important theology around that is that peace is really God's project. And it starts, this is something that God wants for us, wholeness and shalom. And really, he calls us to be a part of bringing about his peace in all of our circles. And that peace looks like peace with God, peace with others close to us, our neighbors, and peace in the world. And so as I think about shalom, I really think about the reality that Jesus came to offer us peace. And he makes peace by dying for us.
Mm-hmm.
We get peace with God, but then he offers us the ability to have peace with one another. What does that look like in our families? So,
yeah, that's good. Now, Tone, you mentioned, I call him Tone. That's kind of what he goes by. Officially, he's Antonio, but everybody who knows him calls him Tone. You mentioned the Shalom Project. Our listeners may not know what that is, so just briefly a hit on that?
Yeah, it is the outreach arm, if you will, or like to talk about it as the end goal of our discipleship. So as we are in a loving relationship with God, God frees us from being focused on self to actually being focused on the things that he wants, his shalom. And the end result of us being discipled in that relationship with God is that we have the heart of God for people, for the world, and that we are pursuing shalom. And so the Shalom Project here at Olivet does a really, really good job of giving students the opportunity to actually take part in the reconciling mission of God through going to trips in Tanzania and all across the globe. And then also in our local community, there's about 8 to 10 student ministries that do the work every single week of getting out into the community and loving on kids all across Kankakee.
Okay,
it's beautiful.
Great. Yeah.
Well, this isn't on our planned outline here of what we want to talk about, but there's one thing I want to share, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Has there been a time in your life that the word shalom really meant something significant to you, like God used that word in a special way? I remember, and I want to share because this was just kind of coming up in my heart as we were talking today. I remember during COVID was one of the first times that while I knew about the word shalom, the Lord kept bringing it to the forefront of my time with him and conversations with others, of knowing that we could have peace even in the midst of unknown, and knowing that even when things felt very broken and At that time, I was feeling really distraught and just like I didn't have the answers that I wanted for what was to come. The Lord just kept bringing me back to Shalom. And so much so, I remember I ordered a sign with the word Shalom on it and put it in our dining room just as a remembrance, because we were eating a lot together at home during that time. Just a remembrance that the Lord was present with us. And even though there was a lot of broken pieces, he was putting it back together. And so I still have that sign, and its home is always in our dining room now as a remembrance of the Lord's presence, that we can always come to his table and he has that for us. But has the word ever just struck you personally in one way or another?
It has for me. So I've shared with our listeners before that one of the joys that I have as a part of my ministry is to lead children's worship. And we always end our service with a blessing, and it's the one from the book of Numbers. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face towards you and give you peace. And so I had been teaching the kids about Shalom, about the concept of Shalom. And one Sunday when we said that blessing, one of them said, we should not say peace, we should say Shalom at the end.
Aww.
And so that's become our routine. When we say that last word, which is peace, we substitute with the word Shalom. And so one of the joys for me is they're learning at a very young age what Shalom is about. And it's just a part of our routine. And when things become a part of a routine, they can become ordinary, but they also are reinforced by that routine. And so I'm real excited for our kids. And every Sunday when I stand over them and I raise my hands and pray that prayer over them, and they're either extending their hands out to receive it, or they've started saying it back, or they're raising their hands up too and facing them toward me and saying it with me. It's a pretty emotional moment on most Sundays when I stop and think about what it is we're saying.
Wow.
That we're asking for God to do that in each other's lives.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine has been more of a recent development. So as of this morning. So over the past couple of years, as I was serving, before I stepped into this new role that I'm in, I was serving as the chaplain for the university and really partnering with Esther to help our students to go through the process of discipleship and understand that, so that they could take part in the Shalom of God, and really knowing the theology of the Shalom that God wants to bring. The revelation came to me this morning as I was just sitting in my quiet time. If you know me, like Lindsey, I like to wake up at least an hour or so before my kids get up. So sometimes that's 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I like to get a cup of coffee and go downstairs. And downstairs in my office, I've written a whole bunch of things that are very important to me on my wall. But one of the things that I have written on my wall is our family tree. And on my family tree, you can see that from my great grandma, I don't know who my great grandfather is. And then my grandfathers on both sides, both my parents grew up in single parent households. So I look at that family tree every single day and see that there's no men present for 2 generations. And then my mom and my dad who was a present, he was there as a father, but wasn't always present. And then I look at my mom and my dad had 4 boys, and I was one of the 4. And on my wall, I've circled me and my wife and put it in red, and just put some things stop here and some things start here. And what I realized this morning was the connection between what I've been just praying every single morning. I have 4 boys myself, which is ironic. I grew up with 3 brothers, 4 boys, and have the unique opportunity to leave a legacy of faith in my 4 boys. And what I realized this morning was I really have been praying about, thinking about, allowing God to reshape my family lineage to bring shalom, to bring wholeness, to bring peace. And so it's something that I've done every morning for the last 2 to 3 years, but really just connected it this morning with the reality that it's really shalom that the Lord is trying to bring to my family.
That is so cool.
That is
I love the
powerful
idea of breaking generational curses, if we want to use that language.
Yes, sir.
And replacing that with generational blessing.
Yes, sir.
And that's exactly what you're doing. So that's fabulous. I'd love to hear that.
Amen. Well, we know that in parenting, it's often easier to just stop the conflict amongst the children, amongst our families, than to do the hard work of building connection together through the conflict. So I'm wondering today, how can we move beyond keeping the peace and actually cultivate and build shalom between siblings and within our own families? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, as I was thinking about this, that morning time to me is so important, because if I don't have that peace within myself, it's really, really hard to create an environment where that's happening. And so what does it look like for me to spend enough time, be with the Lord enough for my own person to have peace within my soul, to then step into what feels like chaos at times with 4 boys?
What are your ages?
We are like 1, 3, 6, and 7, but literally in the next like 60 days will be 2, 4, 6, and 8. And so it does feel like chaos in our household. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and we homeschool, so they're all 4 at home all the time. And if I don't bring an inherent peace that I have within myself into that environment, it's going to be really, really hard for those boys to experience the type of peace that me and my wife want to bring them. And so I think it starts with an internal, and knowing a little bit of my lineage, knowing where I come from, knowing what I have to bring to the table, and allowing the Lord to transform me so I can be better, so I can be a better, more peaceful person. So doing that warring, I call it warring. It is a war at times. Within, and then stepping into my family. And I think it really starts with some tools. And so one of the things that we often do, we try to help our boys by helping them learn how to breathe, technique, but then also talking to them a lot about feelings, which we're talking about at church actually. And so we have a hearth at home, and it's called a hearth. It's a holistic kind of like calendar. They check in and do some things. It's a digital thing, but one of the things that we do on there is every single morning, whenever they wake up, we actually have created a routine for them. And one of the first thing on the routine is to check in. So every single morning they go to the hearth and they say how they're feeling. And just like it's a regular tool for them to be able to like practice for the moments that don't feel quite peaceful, so that they know how to tune in, really get to the bottom of what's there in those moments. And so we practice that often. And it's been one of the guiding things in those moments that don't feel peaceful, to kind of like slow down, breathe, check in. What are you feeling right now? What's going on? So
that's so good. And it reminds me a lot of what we've talked about before from Dr. Dan Siegel, of naming feelings to tame those feelings, where a lot of times in our family life, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a moment, but we get so busy with our schedules that it's easy to overlook how we're truly feeling. And of course, our kids follow our lead in that. And so having that time to really see what we're feeling, how we're feeling with the Lord, helps us to then in turn do that with our kids. I know in our house, one thing that has really helped us build connection, and listeners, you guys know that this has been a wild year for our family, because we brought our daughter home through adoption this summer from the Philippines. And she has had a lot of I would say, time to express all of her experiences up to this point, right? So we're learning everything that she is willing to share with us about what her life was before she came to us. And some of those things are good, and some of those things are really hard. And one of the things that we've done that's been more focused on connection rather than like modifying her behavior, because she is at times quite sassy and has her own opinions about all the things, is we don't have like timeouts or go to your room. We're going to sit with you and we're going to have time in together. And when you're ready, we're going to talk about this, and this. And just showing that we want to connect before we correct. And showing her that that's what's most important to us, because really it was interesting in the first few weeks of her being home, we noticed she was just doing everything as perfectly as possible, because it was a behavior thing that she had learned. I do this, and this right, I receive love, or I'm safe if I do these things. And so we've just been really working as a family to connect with her that what unconditional love is. That doesn't mean it's an excuse to do whatever you want, but it means that we're always going to be in this together and talk about these things. And so that's been really powerful for us as a family. As you know, my sign in our dining room has taken on a whole new meaning as we're sitting around the table.
Yeah.
And I see that Shalom sign and I think, yep, that's what you're doing, Lord, even in these hard moments and hard conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, Tone, you mentioned the importance of your time with God before you get your day started with your family. I think that is such a significant preparation time. I think, Lindsey, you asked a question about like the difference between like discipline and connection when things are going hard. I think when we've prepared ourselves spiritually, then we can go into these situations that become hard. So, brother beating up on another brother. And we go in and instead of saying, stop doing that, to address it from a spiritual perspective of, okay, guys, how does God say we're supposed to treat each other? And, you bring into this a spiritual response rather than just a kind of disciplinary, I got to break this situation up response. And that can be really hard to discipline yourself as a parent to kind of take that approach. But I don't think you can take that approach unless you're spending time with God on a regular basis and your relationship with Him is healthy and you're prepared for those moments.
Yeah.
Take some intentionality. And I think this goes back to a lot of things that we have said on the podcast, that our attempt is not to give parents a bunch of new things to do to help raise their kids to follow Christ, but to be intentional about the things we are already doing. And this is one of those intentional things.
Yes, it is. I think what I hear, and one of the things that has been the Lord has been teaching me, is within the unconditional love, God often, for me personally, wants to deal with the heart of the matter more than the action. And whenever I sit with the Lord, I think that's what the Lord is really talking to me about, trying to correct my heart more than just like the action. Because if my heart is correct, then the action that comes out of a healthy heart and out of a peaceful heart is going to be good. And so then even in connecting and correcting my boys, it is more getting at the spiritual component, more getting at the heart of the matter more than their actual behavior.
Yeah, that's really good, because part of the discipline, if we want to use that word, of a parent in the life of a child is helping to develop the heart, not just correct action.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I like that.
That is so true. And I think when we want to get to the heart of the matter with our kids, with ourselves, with our own souls, that takes time, doesn't it? It takes quiet. It takes stillness. And so I'm wondering, where do we see fragmentation in family life today, where we have busy schedules, we're on our screens, we have stress, we have misunderstandings, we have all those distractions that come in and out. How can we fight for shalom and for wholeness in those moments that feel really disconnected rather than connected with the Lord? Any thoughts there?
Well, don't get me started on the screen time stuff, Lindsey. You know how I feel
we'll have
about that.
a whole nother episode.
Yeah, that's for sure. I love technology. I mean, I love what it does for us, and I rely on it day by day. I don't know what I would do without my calendar on my phone. I probably wouldn't show up for the podcast on time if I didn't have that on there. And technology is a great thing. It's a blessing that we have received in our culture, but blessings can also become curses if we're not careful. And I think one of the things that divides us so much these days as a family are our screens. Mm-hmm. And it is so easy to default back to, I'm tired, I don't want to think right now, I don't want to engage anyone. And so our family of four can sit on the couch together and totally disengage from each other because each of us are on our screens. And so I think this is one of the things that parents struggle with maybe the most in trying to bring shalom into the family is screens kind of robbing us of that ability.
Yeah, I have four boys, 2, 4, 6, and 8, and I definitely know that at times it can be a lot easier to hand them something to keep their attention rather than being present.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think has been very important for me and my family is and I know you guys talk about this but the dinner table has been a huge place for us to check in. 2, 4, 6, and 8, they talk at the level that they're able to, but just what was a highlight of your day? And building connection, what was something that was hard in your day, and talking about both of those and being able to check in on that level. And then even at night, taking some time to just be together, have conversation, pray together, and things like that are some connection points that I think we all have busy schedules, we all have stress, but just to have some intentional quality time that everyone knows and have some components of that time that actually build connection.
Yeah, I like the open-ended question approach where we just ask questions that can't be answered with a yes or a no. We're working on a study right now and hopefully a curriculum down the road on bedtime rituals, or at least the structure of that bedtime and things that parents can do to really make those productive moments. And so the prayer and that intentionality at night. There's something really interesting that happens at bedtime. I'm sure you're experiencing this, Tone, where, as parents, you're ready to cut this off and get them to sleep, and that's when they want to talk, right?
Yep.
And part of the talking, of course, is the longer I talk, the longer I can stay up. But the other part of it is there's just something about that moment where kids feel open to share about their experiences. We hear a lot of things that happen at school at those times, so I'm thankful you're doing that.
I'm reminded literally, it was either last night or the night before. I didn't get much sleep, so I'll forget which one it was. But we're at bedtime, and my 6-year-old Barrow, we will do devotions from time to time and pray, and but like just checking in, how's everybody doing, what's going on. And then Barrow starts talking about randomly, do I have to get baptized? Like, where's this coming from? And we just I start asking questions. I'm nervous to get baptized. And then it gave an opportunity, really, just because he wanted to talk. And it wasn't like, hey, we're going to do this devotional. But then all of a sudden it was like, well, did Jesus get baptized? And Jesus got baptized. He shed his blood for us to be our Lord and Savior. Well, what is the blood again? And we had an extreme conversation about the Israelites and the blood over the doorpost. And then Barrow gets up and he starts stomping, because I can be demonstrative at times. And he remembered that I talked to them about when John talks about the blood of the Lamb that comes to take away the sin of the world. What is John talking about? He's talking about in the Old Testament. So Barrow gets up out of bed and he starts stomping. It's the blood. It's the blood. It's the blood from the Old Testament. And all of a sudden this just guys go to bed, then breaks out into us reading Matthew 28. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them. Do we have to get baptized? Well, is Jesus Lord of our lives? Did Jesus say, go and make disciples and baptize them? And so those are the unique things that can happen just from creating space.
Oh, those are such precious moments.
They are.
And you've got to jump on them when they happen. Yeah, you can't orchestrate that. Those just happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And that all comes just from a simple question, do I have to get baptized?
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
So good. Well, we know that Shalom is connected to justice and to right relationships, as we've shared today. How do you guys think as parents we can model fairness, accountability, and grace in a way that builds lasting peace in our homes?
So back when we were talking about the Shema, we talked about the formal and the informal parts of that. The formal is the real intentional ways in which we pass faith, and then the informal, which happens as life is lived, which is probably maybe the more effective part, is as life is lived. And I think in answering this question about how we build accountability and fairness into the lives of our kids, I think it happens as we're living that. Telling our kids, today I went to so-and-so and I had apologized because I said something to hurt their feelings, and that's what Jesus wants us to do, or, something along the lines. So we're actually living as a model for our kids on how to do something rather than just telling them what they're supposed to do. And I think there's some real effectiveness in being vulnerable before our kids in making them aware of times that we have failed and then how we handled those failures, because they're going to have those moments in their lives. And so I think that's one of the ways that we pass on this idea of being people of shalom.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I also think that when we say the word fair, it's easy to think same, like everyone gets treated the same when it's fair, right? And so one thing that's really helped me as I've worked with kids over the years, and even in our own home with our daughter, is fair doesn't mean everyone's treated the same. Fair means everybody gets what they need. And so what do you need right now? What do they need right now? What does our family need right now? And that in turn gets to the heart of the matter rather than just this, surface level behavior living. It gets to the heart of the matter. You have a more connected conversation, and what's really going on happens, and what is really needed at that moment is able to be met.
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking in my head is, how hard is this for a parent to be able to execute this well?
Oh my goodness.
And I'm just thinking about the reality for me of the journey that I have to go on individually to be able to live this out well in my household. And for me, it takes what Leon said and what both of you guys, I was thinking literally the same thing. The first thing I was thinking in my head was the moment where I do not get it right with my boys, with my wife, to apologize and help them to know that at times I do not get it right. But also in my family with the 2, 4, 6, and 8-year-old, to learn enough, to be in tuned enough, connected with each one of them enough to know what they actually need in each moment, to keep them accountable, to love them well. And from season to season, it looks differently. From day to day, it looks differently. Minute to minute, it looks differently.
And child to child.
Yes.
And child to child, it looks differently. So I was just thinking about that, like how in tuned I actually need to be. I need to be able to have peace within myself to be able to navigate, really seeing them well.
Parenting is the most difficult job that there is. Mm-hmm. There is no doubt about that. And being a Christian parent who is intentional about the way they are living their lives and modeling for their children is tremendous work. But if we're going to commit our lives to something, what better to commit our lives to than to invest in our kids so that they will become Christ followers, not just, and boy, when I say Christ followers, I don't just mean like they're Christians. I mean, they're committed to living their life as Christ has chosen for them, totally sold out, dedicated to that.
They've gone on the journey of discipleship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And now they're pursuing the shalom of God in partnership with him.
That's good. I like the way you said that.
That is good. And with that truth, I think that's a great way to wrap up this episode, that shalom is something that is a journey. It's a journey of trusting the Lord to show us first our shalom with him, to receive that from his son, Jesus, and then to live that out. And, it's easy to make following Jesus top priority and check it off the list on Sundays or Wednesdays, whenever you go to church. But to truly make him the center of our lives is a journey. And we're not perfect at it, especially in parenting, but we can know that his shalom is there for us to receive and to equip us through his Holy Spirit. So
Tone, as you prepare to sign us off, will you repeat what you said at the end here as our final thought about the journey, and then close us?
I think the end goal of our discipleship as parents is that we are able to have God's shalom inside of us so that we can be bringing that to our family. And the end goal for our kids then is that they have said yes to Jesus. They have taken their own discipleship journey of following him. And the end result for them is that they are taking part in the shalom, working out the shalom of God in their lives and in the world, partnering with God. So my friends, thank you for being with us. Remember that when building faith, we are better together.